5, 4, 3, 2.
Welcome to Westchester Jewish Community Services. As a leading agency in providing a comprehensive spectrum of human services, we have been helping people since 1943. We serve all people in Westchester County, regardless of age, income, or ethnicity. We provide a wide variety of essential and dynamic services that make a difference in people's lives. Children, teens, adults, and senior citizens are served by our network of programs located throughout the county. When people come to us for assistance, they become part of the WJCS family. Our highly trained and skilled staff focus on you and your family and are committed to becoming your partner in finding solutions. For more than half a century, we have been connecting people to services that help them overcome mental, physical, or emotional challenges. WJCS is here in your community when you need us.
Welcome to the Ways We Care of Westchester Jewish Community Services. I'm Dale Wang, Director of Community Relations. WJCS is funded by government grants, private individuals and foundations, UJA Federation, United Way, and corporations. We're visitors from another planet to tune into our modern culture. They would certainly assume that our interpersonal relationships today take a variety of forms. Men and women, men and men, or women with women. In our media, they would read about gay and lesbian unions and marriages. A popular TV series brings the Fab Five, a group of civilized gay men, to impart style and order to their heterosexual counterparts. Several TV programs highlight issues in gay and lesbian relationships. Openly homosexual politicians actively promote the human rights agenda, and the mayor of New York City marched with gay and lesbian participants in a St. Patrick's Day celebration. So by all objective standards, one would expect that our society has become accepting and comfortable with people of differing sexual orientations. But has this attitude pervaded the everyday lives of young people who discover that they are gay, lesbian, or unsure of their sexuality? 9 years ago, WJCS created a revolutionary program called Center Lane to establish a safe haven for youth who grappled with sexual difference. From its beginning as an innovative community center that allowed teens to be who they were and find comfort, friendships, and acceptance, Center Lane has developed into a respected and relied upon Westchester institution. Tonight, we will meet some of the people involved with Center Lane and examine how the current cultural climate impacts teenagers who are gay, lesbian, or questioning of their sexuality, and what they see in the world that they are entering. I'd like to introduce to you Sarah Braun, who is director of the Center Lane program.
Hi.
Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you.
And Marissa DeMore, who is a student participant in Center Lane. Welcome, Missy.
Thanks.
And Carol Fessler, who is co-president of PFLAG Westchester. Welcome, Carol, and thank you all for coming and sharing your thoughts. Sarah, I gave a little bit of a description of how Center Lane got started, but give us a little bit of history. This was really unique at the time that it began.
Center Lane, as you said, was started almost 9 years ago, and it was founded by a woman, Dr. Amy Cohn, who is a social worker and an administrator, and had a dream of having a program, a place where gay youth could go, unlike, you know, and they could have a childhood experience unlike what she experienced growing up, so that, you know, gay and lesbian and bisexual kids could come and meet other kids and feel safe, at least for a period of time. And so Center Lane started out as a relatively small program based in White Plains. It's still based in White Plains. And handfuls of kids would come after school and for evening activities. and we would run support groups, and we still run support groups, but it's really just blossomed and flowered in the past, as you said, 9 years, to the point where we have many, many kids coming every single week.
Mm-hmm. What was the perceived need? I know, because I was here and involved with the development, I know it was so important to Amy, but what was the perceived need for youth in the county?
I think that, it has to do with the fact that, and people are more aware of this now, they weren't as aware 9 years ago, that it's very difficult for gay and lesbian students to focus and concentrate in school and in their communities if they're being harassed or if they're worried that they may be harassed. And we talk a lot about bullying. A lot of bullying that goes on in schools is anti-gay type bullying. Kids are called fag, kids are called sissy and dyke and that sort of thing. So there was a need for kids to have a place where they could feel safe, where they could grow and develop and make friendships in a really comfortable and supportive environment.
So based on that need, how did the program develop? What types of programming was in place to deal with some of the issues that were affecting students?
Well, the cornerstone of the program really was, and to some extent still is, the support group. We have a weekly drop-in support group where anybody can come. Any teenager who's between the ages of 14 and 21 can come and bring up topics. It might be related to, how do I come out to my mother? How do I date in a school that's, where there's no other out gay kids? Movie topics, that have gay sensibilities. Really, the support group was really the first service that got started. And then from there, we started to do workshops, educational activities, social events. About 5 years ago, we started having a gay prom every year. We call it the gay prom. Because prom time is extremely stressful for all kids, but especially stressful for gay and lesbian kids. And it's really built on that.
I know over the years, Center Lane has developed just an incredible reputation, and I think originally there were a lot of mental health issues. And that was the focus. People almost felt that you needed to help people deal with the problem of being gay and lesbian. What is the difference today? What do you see? I know that that's really not the focus any longer.
Right. That's a great question. I think that what's changed is the understanding that the reason that gay and lesbian kids do have higher levels of depression, and they do, and higher levels of substance abuse, is because of homophobia and the way that they're treated. And I think that, certainly 9 years ago and, a decade ago and 20 years ago, the perception was that there was something wrong or pathological with being gay itself. And if someone was gay, they needed to see a therapist, or they needed to, to work out how they felt about themselves, or the fact that they were gay or lesbian. And I think that more and more people today realize that if gay and lesbian kids do have, struggle with depression, that it's not because of their sexual orientation. It's because of homophobia. It's because of bullying in the schools. And I just think that that's the key difference, that there is a growing awareness that the problem is not located in the individual gay and lesbian young person, but in the environment, in society.
You have also promoted a lot of educational and outreach activities, and I know we've just come off one incredible educational experience for both the kids who were involved and kids who came to hear. What are you doing in terms of educating the community, in terms of being a resource for people in the Westchester area?
We do a lot, as you said, a lot of community education, and the reason that we do that is because we don't just sort of want to provide direct services to kids, but we want to be part of a macro level change, raising people's awareness, educating teachers and social workers and parents and community members. So we do a lot of different types of community education. We go into schools, my staff and I go into schools and do educational workshops in health classes, in social studies classes, about bullying, about difference, clarifying myths and stereotypes, sort of debunking myths. We do that sort of education. We also co-sponsor an annual conference called Healing the Hurt every November with GLSEN, which is Gay, Lesbian, Straight Education Network, and with PFLAG, Parents and Friends of Lesbian and Gays. And that's a full-day educational conference open to the public, but targeting people, professionals, and people who work with youth and parents, teaching them about gay and lesbian issues and gay and lesbian youth issues. And then the other thing that we do, which you just referred to, is every year there's an annual day of silence, which is sort of a national attempt to raise awareness about the silencing and the harassment of gay and lesbian youth. And in high schools and in colleges, students organize a silent protest. And what Center Lane does is we sponsor an event at the end of the day, which took place this past Wednesday, to break the silence in a ritualistic way. And as you said, it was very well attended. We had over 150 people, and we had youth coming up and speaking, and teachers and parents, and heartfelt stories about harassment, and heartfelt stories about hope also. So it was really phenomenal, and that, I think, is enormously educational for anyone who was there.
Mm-hmm. I think one of the most significant things, and I remember some very unfortunate incidents when we started Center Lane, and as public relations director, I really had to deal with some of the angry public. But I think it's very significant to hear who's funding Center Lane today, because it's definitely mainstreamed. And maybe you could give people a sense of who's behind supporting Center Lane.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. When we started 9 years ago, we were fortunate enough to have a private donor to give us some money to get started, but there's no way we would have been supported or were supported by public dollars. And now we are funded, we are partially supported by the Westchester County Youth Bureau and by the New York State Department of Health. So we're supported by both county and state, public dollars, as well as for-profit corporations and individual donors. So really, the financial picture looks different in terms of the support.
Mm-hmm. And obviously, if the county and the state is putting money behind this, it is not something that's for a very limited population. It's for people who are, they're promoting an agenda that wants these young people to move into the mainstream and to be accepted.
I think there's a recognition that 8 to 10% of human beings, are gay or lesbian across age, across culture, across socioeconomic status. So that's a significant portion of the population. And if those kids are suffering because of homophobia, I mean, I know that the Department of Health and the Westchester County Youth Bureau want to be part of the solution. They want to serve that significant portion of the young population.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Just to give a little perspective, you've been the director for 2 years, but you've been involved for many more. What types of issues do you think are important to the teens you see today, as opposed to, how has it changed?
I think that some issues are the same. There are certainly some young people who struggle with coming out and with how their family or their communities are going to react. But I think that more and more kids are coming out, and they're coming out at younger ages, and they're feeling okay to do that. And some of the new issues that come up are not having anyone to date. If you're the only out gay kid in your school, or if you and 3 other kids are out, that's your pool of dating, and so it makes it hard. So that's a new issue. I think another issue, you mentioned the TV show Queer Eye for the Straight Guy. I think that to some extent, and I certainly don't want to imply that there is no more homophobia in mainstream America at all, but to some extent in sort of white, middle, and upper middle class society, there are some role models. There are some examples of it being okay to be gay or lesbian, and that's not as true within communities of color. And so I really am concerned about LGBT youth of color and reaching out to them, and and making sure that they have a place where they feel safe and where they can develop in a healthy way.
Right, because cultural differences impact every choice people make anyway. Right.
That's right.
Well, let's give Missy a chance to talk a little bit about her experience. Missy, what brought you to Center Lane? How did you hear about it, and what made you feel that this would be a place you'd want to connect to?
In the beginning of 10th grade, I wanted to start a gay-straight alliance at my high school. So I went to the student assistance counselor. I didn't really know who else to ask. And she told me about, basics of how to start a club, and then told me that I could go to Center Lane, saying that it was like a gay lesbian youth group and they could give me more information. So I was talking on the phone to Sarah for a couple months before I ever had the guts to go to Center Lane. And then I ended up going in January of that year. And after I went there for about maybe 2 months later, I came out to my father, and then it was good. But Center Lane helped me come out and to start the club at my school. So since I've been going, I've done more of each.
Right, right. When you say Center Lane helped you to come out, what types of support did you get there to enable you to broach that subject with your father and to, begin to accept who you were and ask someone else to accept who you were?
Well, before I had gone to Center Lane, I never really knew any gay people at all. And once I started going there and seeing that gays weren't these terrible pedophilic people, that there were kids just like me who went there and adults that were good role models, I realized that there wasn't really much that I had to be ashamed about in comparison to what I'd been feeling before. So as I began to feel more secure with myself, I found that I was able to tell other people, but also Center Lane gave me tactics of how to approach the situation with my parents, think of the best and worst case scenarios, and how to approach each person.
Have you, since you have come out to your dad, has it been easier in your family to be yourself?
Not at first. I didn't end up coming out to the rest of my family until April or May of that year. So that was about 2 years ago. And only in the past year or so have my parents been supportive and asking me about dates that I go on, because beforehand it just wasn't talked about. But now they like my girlfriend a lot. And they're completely fine with it. And they treat me the same as if I had been straight.
If you, when you wanted to set up the GSA in your high school, obviously, if you didn't have any other gay friends, was it because there were no other gay young people there, or was it because they were afraid to come out? And what happened in the process of setting up the group?
Well, the gay people are always there. It's just a matter of whether you know them or if they know. But for over a year, I was the only out gay student at the high school. But people would come out to me individually, and I just couldn't say anything about it. But the GSA didn't really take off until the Day of Silence that year. A lot of people didn't know about it, and it's hard to get a club started in the middle of the school year. I mean, around like February is when we started having weekly meetings. But after the Day of Silence, we had a pretty constant, like 15 to 20 people a week that would come.
So it's really taken off, and now that was 2 years ago. What is that group like at this point?
Number-wise?
Number-wise, and what sort of things do you do when you're in your school? In terms of, is it outreach, is it education for other students, or is it just a group where you get together and discuss issues?
I would say it's kind of a combination between social, political activism, and education. We had a presentation to the faculty for Superintendent's Conference Day last year, talking about the GSA, what it is, about it being a nationwide thing, not just Harrison being radical. And and we talked about the Day of Silence, because a lot of teachers didn't know about it, and they weren't respecting their students' decisions not to speak. And we have a lot of dedicated members, which is different than the beginning of the club. A lot of people would just show up once or twice and then not come back anymore. But now we have a solid 15 people that always come. And then occasionally they bring in their friends if we're having like a movie day. Sometimes we have activities day. We work out of the Glisten lunchbox. And
But also, I remember I think it was the first year Missy started the GSA, we go to Albany to lobby.
Oh, right.
You know, once a year we go to Albany to lobby for rights, and Missy packed a bus with Harrison students, and we had to get another bus to fill. I mean, it was unbelievable.
It was great.
Well, I think when we just spoke briefly on the phone, you said when you first went to Center Lane, it was to find other gay people, but now it's really to be more politically active and to really hone those skills, which I'm sure you will use in your future. Let's get another perspective. Carol, you're a mom of a young man who also grappled with his sexual orientation. Can you talk a little bit about how that was for you and what the experience was?
Sure. My son came out to me when he was 15 years old. And, you know, up until the time, sort of the previous 3 months before he came out, he seemed to be getting more and more depressed. He seemed to be getting sort of gloomy. He was certainly isolating himself. He'd been a very sociable person before, and now he wasn't taking phone calls from his friends after school and just kind of holing up in the basement. And I was worrying about him. And when he told me that he was gay, almost my first thought was, I need to find other gay kids for him to talk to and to be with. Just a few weeks before he came out, there'd been a big cover story in the New York Times Magazine about gay teens and how much they use the internet as a way of making contact with other gay people and developing relationships that were purely electronic, and that it was a way for gay kids to overcome their isolation. And the article also talked about how difficult it was for gay kids to have the sort of normal adolescent experiences that all other teens have and need to have, you know, falling in love, having a crush, breaking up, getting your heart broken, trying again. I mean, those are really important kinds of experiences for people to have, and I wanted my son to be able to experience all of that as well. So I went on the internet and did a search, gay teens, Westchester, and Center Lane popped up. And 2 or 3 days later, I took Nick down to Center Lane for his first meeting. And when he walked in, you know, he was shy and he was stiff and he was that same very gloomy kid that he'd been. And when he walked out, just an hour and a half later, it was like the shadow had lifted and Nick was back inside himself. You know, it was like Nick had returned to us. And really from that point forward, I never saw that same sort of depression and isolation in him because he'd had that opportunity just to connect with other kids that were like him.
What a relief for you that must have been to feel that it wasn't a depression and that there was a reason and something that you could really be supportive and find an outlet for him.
And you know, Center Lane was also wonderful for me in the, you know, certainly in the sense that it provided a safe place for Nick to go and to meet other wonderful kids. But it was also a real source for me of advice and encouragement. If I had questions about gay teens or how I should handle a situation that was coming up, I could call Sarah and just talk to her about it. And she wouldn't, you know, say anything that would breach Nick's or any of the other kids' confidentiality, but she would be able to talk with me as a person who's very familiar with what gay teens are going through, about what some of those issues and concerns might be and how I as a parent might address them. So even for the rest of the family, I found that Center Lane was a tremendous resource.
Sarah, do you run the groups for both the kids and parents separately? Do you run groups for the parents?
We don't run groups for parents. What we do is try to connect parents with PFLAG, parents and friends of lesbians and gays, so that they have their own support group. And as Carol, you know, indicated, it's just as important for parents to, you know, have that support as it is for the kids. But I think developmentally, adolescents need their own space.
Right.
So we provide the services for the kids, and then we try to connect the parents to the PFLAG support group.
Right. So Carol, you not only took the step of helping your son to come out, but you also then became very involved and became a spokesperson for parents. Can you talk a little bit about how that is and what are the concerns of parents today? I opened saying that the world was a little bit different than it had been. Is it? Do parents feel that way? And what are they thinking about?
The number one concern that parents walk into a PFLAG meeting with is safety. They are very afraid for the safety of their children. They're very afraid of gay bashing. They are afraid that someone is going to beat up and perhaps even murder their son or daughter because he or she is gay or lesbian. And that concern, that fear, really takes primacy over anything else. They're also very afraid about health issues. And we certainly spend a lot of time talking about that. One of the things that PFLAG is able to do for parents who come to our meetings is to provide support, in the sense that we're all parents who are experiencing a similar situation, but also we're a wonderful source of information. We're really able to kind of exchange ideas and to exchange information and resources with one another. So that's important. Another thing, when Nick came out to me, I was so tremendously impressed by his courage and by the courage of all of these very young gay and lesbian teenagers who are willing to really own to themselves who they are and are willing to, you know, stand up, look the world in the eye and own to the world who they are. And I thought that with that kind of courage, that what Nick really deserved was my full support and any efforts that I could make to try to make a world that would be safer and more welcoming for him and for all of the other gay and lesbian, bisexual and transgender children who are out there. And PFLAG really provides a wonderful vehicle for doing that, both in terms of helping us to make the family a safe and welcoming place for its children, helping through various sort of educational and outreach efforts to help make our communities and schools safer and more welcoming, and then also through political advocacy work to help to create a legal structure that guarantees certain safety and certain rights and responsibilities for gay and lesbian people.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's wonderful, and you won't believe it, but there are only 2 minutes left in this half. I'm sure that there are still hurdles that people face. Do you think that we will reach a time when Center Lane isn't a necessity?
I really hope so, because I think developmentally, you know, kids need to be able to stay in their own communities and stay in their own schools and be part of their own churches and synagogues and not have to leave their community to find a safe place. So I hope that, and I don't want to say how long because I don't know how long it'll take because we do have hurdles, but I hope that there's a time when Center Lane's not needed, because gay and lesbian kids can be exactly who they are in their own community, in their hometown.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I want to give you a chance to give a telephone number for how people get in touch with PFLAG, because our viewers may be grappling with the same issues that all of us are, and they may want to reach you.
Okay, they can reach PFLAG Westchester at 914-245-8758.
Okay. And Missy, I want to wish you the best of luck at Smith College. I
Thanks.
think that you're going to have
can't wait.
just an incredible experience. And I hope you bring the background and the activism and this incredible sense of self to your future at college. I know that it should be an incredible experience for you.
Thank you.
Sarah, we'll come back to you, but if you would give the viewers the number for Center Lane and hours.
Center Lane is open every day after school, 3:30. We're open late Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays until 9. Our phone number is 914-948-1042.
And people don't have to be referred by anyone. They can self-refer. They can
Drop-
come in.
Absolutely.
They can drop
It's
in.
a drop-in center. Anybody who's 14 through 21 can just come in.
Okay, so our target group is 14 to 21. I want to thank you all for sharing your time and for helping other people understand what the issues are. And we'll come back in the second section to talk about how volunteers are involved with Center Lane. So please stay tuned. Thank you. Welcome back to the Ways We Care of Westchester Jewish Community Services. I'm Dale Wang, Director of Community Relations. WJCS is funded by government grants, private individuals and foundations, UJA Federation, United Way, and corporations. When Center Lane, WJCS's Community Center for Gay and Lesbian Youth, was established 9 years ago, it immediately became a haven for young people who were grappling with their sexuality. Even in that not-so-distant past, the community was less open to issues of diversity. The fear of sexually transmitted disease was still rampant, and politics championed "don't ask, don't tell" as the primary directive for coping with homosexuality. Many changes have evolved over the past decade, and gay and lesbian teens today anticipate a world of greater acceptance and more equal opportunity. While significant challenges and considerable obstacles still exist, programs like Center Lane adapt to contemporary needs and help young people prepare to participate fully, actively, and effectively in their communities. Tonight we have been speaking with a student and parent who have been involved with Center Lane over the past few years. Now we will also get the perspective of two volunteers who share their time and experience to enhance the programming of Center Lane. We're going to begin again with Sarah Braun, who is the program director of Center Lane. Welcome back, Sarah.
Thank you.
And introduce Julie Maynor, who has been a longtime volunteer, probably from the beginning of the program.
Almost.
Welcome, Julie.
Thank you.
And Ellen Vaz, who is a student and volunteer at Center Lane. So
thank you.
welcome to all of you. And Ellen, welcome back from the March on Washington. I think it's amazing to have someone who was marching for women's lives, which we really need to protect these days in our country. Sarah, let's review a little for those people who are tuning in now and didn't see the first half, a little bit of the background of Center Lane and what you accomplished through the program.
Well, Center Lane is almost 9 years old. It was founded by Dr. Amy Cohn, who had a vision to create a community center for gay and lesbian youth in a way that didn't exist when she was growing up. And so Center Lane provides that. It provides a safe haven for gay and lesbian and bisexual and transgendered youth to meet other people, to talk about their struggles, to work out how they're going to come out to their families, as well as just a place to be kids and to not have to, constantly worry about being harassed or thinking about their sexual orientation.
Mm-hmm. So you accomplished this through a range of activities. Can you just summarize briefly what types of things you're involved with?
Sure. We have drop-in hours every day after school where kids can come, do their homework, play music, play pool. Once a week we have a support group, which has been sort of the cornerstone of the program, where kids can come and bring up any issues that they're struggling with. It's an adult facilitated support group. We have educational workshops and social activities. We have a movie night every Friday night, and we have other social events such as a gay prom. We have a gay prom every year for the kids.
I remember last year, you have 250
we had almost,
kids?
we had almost
We're
that.
bursting at the seams.
Yeah, a huge number. And straight kids calling and saying, "Can I come to the gay prom?" That's a difference.
Right, right. Yeah, so that is a difference over the years. We talked a little bit in the first half about some of the changes that you've experienced over the past several years. And I think one of the things, especially having talked to Carol and PFLAG, is it seems that there's a greater acceptance on the part of parents. Are you seeing that, or is that just my perception?
We are seeing that. I mean, we still have a ways to go, and there certainly are young people who are not out to their parents, or who, when they come out to their parents, receive a very negative reaction. But 5 years ago, only a handful of young people were out to their parents. And now, I would say more than half, at least, are at least out to their parents. And we have parents that drop their kids off, after school, and we have parents that bring food in on Friday nights to help support, the movie, and parents that are involved in PFLAG. So that is a tremendous change, because the one thing that I really see as correlated with young people doing well and feeling good about themselves is parental support. So, the kids that are out to their parents and their parents are supportive, just from, practical experience, do better. You know, so it is really nice to see that that's happening at least to some degree.
You touched a little bit on some of the communities where it's not so easy to be out and to have identified yourself as being homosexual. Do you want to elaborate a little bit about that and how you help these young people go back to their schools and go back to their families and feel good about themselves?
I think that within communities of color, it's more difficult because of the compounded issue of racism and homophobia. It can be more difficult for lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgendered youth to come out to their parents. It can be more difficult for parents to accept that their children are gay because they're already dealing with racism, you know, and it's sort of like, you know, Carol Fessler, you know, spoke about the fear that parents have about their kids. I think that, you know, LGBT parents, you know, of color have a tremendous fear. You know, my kid, what's going to happen to my child? So there's tends to be, at this stage, less openness to really, you know, being supportive and being, you know, rah-rah, okay, my kid's gay and I'm going to go to a PFLAG meeting. And so, you know, we do a lot of things. We do concerted outreach to LGBT youth of color. We're going to be actually starting some satellite services in communities such as Yonkers, where there are a lot of young people of color, so that it's geographically accessible for them to come. We are going to be hiring mentors, you know, who are role models for LGBT youth of color to facilitate activities. So we're really, you know, making an effort to reach out to those kids.
Okay, all right. I also know that you're often called upon by school districts and county representatives to talk about youth violence and to talk about harassment and discrimination. And we were looking at the rosier picture of how things have changed positively, but I'm sure all of you probably have some perspective on what are still some of these issues. You know, school districts, I know, are calling us to ask you to speak all the time.
Well, that is happening more and more, and there are districts that are asking us to come and speak in health classes and speak sometimes to the faculty. But still, there are plenty of districts where there's a lot of resistance to that, and where if we said we could come in and do some education about bullying, about anti-gay harassment, that the administration would say, we're not going to do that, we're not going to go there. You know, parents wouldn't approve of that. So it's sort of like, you know, whereas I think hopefully we're at a place where everybody would, you know, accept that, you know, that racist bullying is not acceptable, and it's okay to teach, you know, against racist bullying. I don't think we're at that point with anti-gay, you know, harassment in the schools. You know, there's still sort of a fear. What are the parents going to say? So, you know, we struggle with getting into, you know, all of the districts and kind of educating more people.
Right. We have an incredible group of volunteers, and I know we have a small selection here of them, but let me hear about what the volunteer experience is and how you're using volunteers.
Well, I definitely, you know, I know you're going to talk to Julie and Ellen, but I just have to say that Central Lane would be a fraction of how successful it is without volunteers. The in-kind services that we get, we have 8 or 9 volunteers that run groups, that mentor kids, that help us with anything from computer problems to graphic design, really make the program work. And, you know, some of the volunteers have been there almost since the beginning of the program. The loyalty is really tremendous. So.
Julie, you've been one of those volunteers, so can you tell us a little bit about what you do and what brings you to Central Lane and what the experience is like for you?
Sure. I've been volunteering at Central Lane for about 8 years. The program's 9 years old, and I've been there about 8 years. And really what brings me in is obviously the kids. The opportunity to go to a place with the kids that we see at Central Lane and have an impact on their lives just by being there is something that's really very special.
Now, you've been running a group. What are the types of issues and concerns that you discuss in your group and that are on the minds of young people today.
Yeah, we run, as Sarah said, the Monday night discussion group for the kids. And the issues that they bring up really range from as simple as the gay personalities that they see in movies and how they can relate and rationalize what they see on TV and in the mass media, all the way up to the things that you would expect, the coming out issues, the harassment at school, the issues of how to deal with personal safety, how to deal with family. All of those issues come up in group, and they come up repetitively and have for the last 8 years.
Ellen, you're a newer volunteer.
Yeah.
What's your involvement? What brought you there, and what are you involved with?
Yeah, well, a combination of things really brought me to Center Lane. I just moved to Westchester just a year ago, September actually, and I came to the Loft, which is the place where Center Lane is held, kind of looking to find, you know, a niche or, you know, what kind of involvement does Westchester have for the gay and lesbian, bisexual and transgender community. And that's when I met Sarah. I was 21 at the time, so I was still of the age with, you know, fit within the age brackets of Center Lane, but really wanted to wanted to see a larger picture for Center Lane. I wanted to see what kind of growth, you know, I could help support and facilitate for the program. So we came up with this idea to start a college mentoring group with the hopes to bring in other, you know, youth, young adults that are closer to age to a lot of the youth that participate in the program. So I came in as a volunteer just the beginning, I guess it was December or January, and since then I do some of the same stuff that Julie does, but really trying to just kind of, you know, we want to diversify the program, and we don't want to just diversify the youth that come to the program. I think we want to reach out to members of the gay and lesbian community in Westchester, you know, African American, Latino. So, you know, that was kind of one of the goals that I have as a volunteer and what we're trying to facilitate with the program right now. So, yeah.
Julie, you've been involved over a period of time. Have you seen a change in the nature? You know, I opened with talking about how I see the world has changed, but do you feel that the young people are looking at a different world?
Absolutely. I should clarify that. In some respects, yes. In some respects, no. The atmosphere really at Center Lane is tremendously different from when I started working there 8 years ago. When I first started there was a real sense of tension at Center Lane. The kids would come in with this deep-seated fear. They were very isolated, and they were afraid not only of what the rest of the world would think about them, but they also walked into a place like Center Lane that was there for them, worried about what we would think about them and their sexuality. And there was just, they were coming in singles, one at a time, from different communities, for very different reasons. And really, it would take them months to get acclimated to the environment of having a someplace like a Center Lane to come to. It's very different today. Like 8 short years later, the atmosphere at Center Lane is completely different. The kids come in groups. They come in groups at a time. We're hearing very fewer stories about, used to hear a lot of stories about kids being kicked out of their homes. We had a lot of homeless kids. We had a lot of kids who were experiencing a lot of physical abuse. And that's not to say that that doesn't happen now, but they're fewer and they're further between. And at least Center Lane is truly a place where they can come, and even if they've had a lousy day and they've been harassed at school or they've experienced something negative from their family, they come to Center Lane and they truly feel like they have a family there, which is something that has developed over time. It wasn't there at the start, but it has developed over time, and it's really been very nice to see.
I wonder, because the statistics always showed that it's the hardest time, maybe between 14 and 18, to be different sexually from the mainstream. And is it, you know, are you seeing a change in the perspective? And from a college student to, you know, someone who's 21, you know, what's been the development for you? How do you share the light at the end of the tunnel for kids who are going through the most difficult time and coming to Central Lane and looking forward to the future.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting that you say that. I mean, I remember when I came to Center Lane and I met the youth that participate in the program, I was completely blown away by, you know, them being so comfortable with who they are and being so verbal with each other and having an open dialogue about gay issues, about everyday issues, that gay people are not exempt from those issues either. So, so for me, it's, you know, I have this saying that I learn something new every day from the participants in the program, because their experience is so different than mine. You know, I wasn't out in high school, and it wasn't until I was, you know, in college that I had the support that I needed in order to be able to come out. So, I mean, I think that, you know, my perspective that I share with them is, you know, don't ever forget that it's not always easy for the next person, you know, because I think, you know, we have such a positive environment in Center Lane, and I'm not going to say it's easy for us to forget that for the person sitting beside you in the classroom, they may not be aware of, you know, the support that's out there that you have as a out and gay person, you know. So, you know, for me, bringing in that perspective of, well, you never know, you know, really tries to hand the torch over to the youth, which is what I think that the program, we try to foster that sort of growth and that encouragement for them to help other youth. Yeah.
Julia,
Yeah, I was just going to add that, you know, the thing that struck me about Center Lane from day one was the idea that, and everybody has said it who's spoken here today, is that this time in their lives, in the 14 to 21-year-old, is so important from a developmental standpoint that, you know, teenagers are trying on personalities, they're figuring out their likes, their dislikes, what's important to them, where they want to go in life, and gay and lesbian kids traditionally haven't had a place where they could just be teenagers, where they could try on all of this stuff, where they could be a different person every day and be accepted for who they are. And the notion that as a volunteer, what I always try to keep in my head is that the most important thing that we do is we open the doors. You know, we have this place that they can come and foster all of the things that Ellen was talking about in them in terms of development as people.
Mm-hmm. I know that part of what you do is also empower the young people to speak out for themselves and to go back to their own communities and form the GSAs and to educate their friends. How does that happen in the Central Lane community?
Wow.
You know, part of it has developed and evolved from the kids. 8 years ago when I started Center Lane, even 5 years ago, the idea of a GSA was non-existent. And it really came at the same time as it came from Sarah and the people at Center Lane sort of talking about these organizations and what was going on nationwide. It took the kids to actually take some of those ideas, go back into the schools, and then come back to us for advice on how to grow these ideas. Not only has it come from them, but also, you know, Center Lane has taken kids down to the Gay Pride Parade every year and has held the gay prom and has just sort of kept certain issues in front of the kids, not push them on the kids, but you know, Monday night the discussion groups that we have often turn to these sorts of issues in terms of activism and what we can do and what we shouldn't do and what we can do. And all of that has sort of come together along with the idea that these kids are feeling a little bit less isolated, a little bit braver, a little bit more comfortable in their own skin, has enabled them to be able to get out there in the community and foster some of these ideas outside of Center Lane.
And I think if I can just, you know, add to that, there's something really healing for the kids about speaking out. You know, the silencing of not being who you are, not being honest, is very detrimental. And so the kids, I mean, beg us to take them to high schools and do speaking and to come on programs like this and to, you know, it's not like I have to, you know, plead with anybody to go and do speaking. There's something, you know, when we do the education, of course it's great for the people who are receiving the education, but I often think that it's at least as, you know, healthy and empowering for the kids who are doing the speaking. So there's a real drive to say, this is who I am, this is what I've been through, which is you know, adolescent development is like that anyway.
Right,
you know, listen to
right.
me, this is my story, you know, but really, you know, in a way of like overcoming, you know, maybe some years of being silenced or of not being open.
As a volunteer, it's unbelievably inspiring to watch what these kids do, because it goes both ways. You know, granted, we've been there for the kids and we've created this fostering environment. I could never have sat and done a program like this 8 years ago. But watching what the kids have achieved and the development that they've experienced, I watch some of the kids now and what they do, and I say, how could I not do a program like this?
Right.
You know, there's nothing.
Yeah. And we really like try to answer their questions. Like we're a program for them. So if they want to do something in their high schools or they want to do something in their middle schools, I know that's a big place. Glisten recently held the No Bullying Day, I believe, for middle schools, you know, and some of the youth in our Center Lane program wanted to get involved with that, not just from a gay, lesbian, bisexual perspective, but from a holistic perspective of this is wrong and we need to start implementing these changes at an early age. So I hear all like great ideas coming left and right all the time from the youth of the program, and you know, I think that we're a program, we have to hear them and say, oh, you want to do that? We'll help with the structure. We'll help you do this or that. So, and as far as college students are involved, you know, like you need a college speaker to come to your school, we're here for you, you know, because education is key for everybody, you know, and to see a successful gay or lesbian person that's in college that's doing great thing, I mean, it speaks to these kids.
Mm-hmm. I was struck too that so many of the things that your college friends are involved with at Center Lane are really adolescent kind of activities, you know, that the kids want to learn about college and they want to do a writing workshop, and it's not just about the issues that you have around being gay. It's what adolescents do in a healthy atmosphere.
Yeah, I mean the writing workshops and like public speaking workshops, I mean we're all involved with public speaking, so it's important to develop those skills, not just because it's a gay lesbian thing, because it's a human thing. It's something that will help them succeed as human beings, you know. And some people forget that gay and lesbians are human. So.
No, I think that one of the tremendous advances is that it's really moved to broaden so much, to just say these are kids and these are their needs, and it's not just about the issues of sexuality. We had spoken, and I ended in the last session a little bit about what would we foresee a time when there wouldn't need to be a Center Lane. What visions do you have for the future for gay and lesbian and bisexual, transgender? I'm sorry, because I sort of summarize. It's easier to get out youth. But with our culture changing a little, how do you see the next couple of years?
I don't know about the next couple of years. I think the next couple of years are going to be hard, but I think that what I'd like to see is a time when gay and lesbian youth and gay and lesbian people and bisexual and transgender people are integrated into society in a way where a special safe haven like Center Lane isn't necessary. That people are just who they are in their own communities, in their own places of worship, in their own families, and they don't have to go to a different town to feel safe. That's what I'd like to see, and on an optimistic day, that's what I think will happen in time.
And Sarah, we have 3 minutes left. I wanted to recap because I think that part of that vision is the fact that we have funders from, a variety of resources now, and it's not just personal people who are putting their money in because they've had these needs. Can you talk a little bit about the funding and where that's gone?
Yeah, absolutely. When we started, 9 years ago, we were fortunate enough to have a private donor, but we certainly were not supported by public dollars and would not have been. And now we are funded by the Westchester County Youth Bureau and the New York State Department of Health. So supported by, public funding at both the county and the state level. And I think that that's indicative of some really positive changes that, that government institutions see that, 8 to 10% of the population is not an insignificant percentage, and that, services really need to be in place for the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender population. So.
Ellen, where do you see your future going?
My future?
I know you're almost ready to graduate.
Yes,
right?
I finished my program at Mercy College in August. I've learned so much at Center Lane, and it's given me a lot of direction as a volunteer, as a young volunteer. I'd like to stay in nonprofit. I just went to the March for Women's Lives in D.C. So any sort of political activism, advocacy. I love working with youth, mentoring youth. So yeah, that's where I'd like to see myself, getting involved with communications and broadening public awareness and education.
Well, it's wonderful to have spokespeople who are so articulate and so committed. And Julie, you certainly have been an incredibly committed volunteer, and we appreciate all that you've done. Sarah, let's just give people again the times and how to reach you.
Okay.
And
Center Lane is open every day, Monday through Friday after school from 3:30. We are open late Monday, Wednesday, and Friday until 9. We can be reached at 914-948-1042, and we are located in White Plains.
Okay, and again, I'll reiterate that young people don't have to have any referrals. They can come by themselves. They can come with a friend, and they are welcome to the gay prom.
That's right.
Which we'll be hearing about soon, I'm sure. And I just thank you for helping to make the world more accepting and helping to make the world more tolerant in everything that you do, all of you. And I think that we're all better for everything that you've been doing at Center Lane, and certainly it's very helpful for young people who have struggled with their identities. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
If people have any other questions about WJCS or the Center Lane program, you can reach us at 761-0600. And if you are interested in being supportive of Center Lane, Sarah would love to hear from you. So thank you for viewing, and good night.